The Grand Galactic Council chamber was larger than most cities. It was built inside a hollow asteroid that floated near the center of the galaxy. The inside of the rock had been shaped into a massive hall of stone and silver metal. Tall pillars reached upward into darkness. Soft blue light fell from the ceiling like cold sunlight. Thousands of seats rose in perfect circles around a central floor. Every powerful species in the known galaxy had a seat there. And today, every seat was filled. The air felt heavy. No one spoke loudly. Even the smallest whisper echoed. In the very center of the chamber stood two humans. They wore simple dark uniforms, no weapons, no guards, no fear on their faces. Ambassador Daniel Hale stood slightly in front. Beside him was Ambassador Leon Okoye. Both kept their hands calmly behind their backs. Above them, a massive holographic screen glowed in the air. On it were the words, "Emergency vote, removal of Earth from the Galactic Council." The reason had already been spoken many times over the last month. Rapid military growth, unapproved expansion, dangerous technological development. Some species had called humanity unpredictable, others had called them a threat. The truth was simple: humanity was growing too fast, and the galaxy did not like it. The High Chancellor, a tall, silver-skinned being from the Avari Dominion, slowly rose from his elevated throne at the top of the chamber. His long robes flowed behind him like liquid metal. His voice filled the hall. The vote will now be finalized. A low hum spread through the chamber as each species activated their voting console. Red light, green light, across thousands of panels. The humans did not look up at the screen. They already knew. For weeks, support had been fading. Alliances had shifted. Fear had grown. One by one, the lights stopped blinking. The High Chancellor raised one hand. The holographic screen changed. Numbers began to count. Approved votes, opposed votes, abstained. The chamber was silent except for the soft clicking sound of the system calculating the final result. Then, the number froze. Approved. The vote to remove Earth from the Galactic Council had passed. A deep metallic tone echoed through the chamber, signaling the decision was official. Some species nodded in satisfaction. Some looked relieved. Others looked down at the humans with something close to regret. The High Chancellor spoke again. By majority decision, the species known as humanity is hereby removed from Council authority. Earth will no longer hold voting rights, protection status, or shared military privilege. The words fell like cold stones, effective immediately. The chamber waited. Everyone expected something: anger, protest, desperate negotiation. Humanity had fought hard to join the Council decades ago. They had proven themselves in border wars. They had shared medical technology. They had saved entire colonies during star plagues. Surely they would not accept this quietly. But Ambassador Hale did not shout. He did not argue. He slowly stepped forward. The sound of his boots echoed across the smooth stone floor. Thousands of alien eyes followed him. When he spoke, his voice was calm. Understood. That was all he said at first. A murmur moved across the chamber. The High Chancellor narrowed his glowing eyes. You accept the ruling? Ambassador Hale looked up toward the towering seats. We accept your decision. The silence grew even, heavier. It felt wrong. Too easy. Hale turned his head slightly toward Ambassador Okoye. She gave a small nod. Then Hale spoke again. In that case, he said evenly, humanity will proceed with Phase 2. The words spread across the chamber like a shockwave. Phase 2? The High Chancellor leaned forward. Clarify your meaning. Hale's face did not change. There is nothing to clarify. The Council has made its choice. Humanity respects that. He paused, but humanity also prepared for it. A faint whisper of confusion passed through the upper rows. Prepared? For banishment? That made no sense. Earth had spent years requesting deeper cooperation. They had pushed for shared research projects. They had asked for stronger defensive pacts. Why would they prepare to be removed? The High Chancellor's voice became sharper. "What is Phase 2, Ambassador?" For a moment, Hale said nothing. Then he reached into his uniform pocket and placed a small silver device on the ground in front of him. The device activated instantly. A new hologram filled the center of the chamber. Gasps echoed from multiple species. It showed space. Not just any space. It showed the outer regions of Council territory. And within that, space, ships, thousands of ships, human ships, massive black hulls arranged in perfect formation, silent, waiting. More images flashed. Another region of space, more fleets, a third, a fourth. Every major hyperspace corridor leading into Council territory now showed human military presence. The chamber erupted in noise. What is this? How many vessels are those? That fleet size is impossible. The High Chancellor slammed his staff against the floor. The sound boomed like thunder. Silence. The noise slowly faded. He turned his cold gaze back to the humans. "Are you threatening the Council?" Ambassador Hale shook his head. "No." He looked around the chamber slowly, making eye contact with as many species as he could. "We are protecting ourselves." The room grew still again. "For decades," Hale continued, "humanity has relied on Council protection agreements. Today, those agreements ended." He gestured toward the hologram. "Phase 2 ensures that Earth will never depend on outside protection again." Ambassador Okoye stepped forward for the first time. Her voice was calm but firm. "You removed Earth's access to Council defense networks. That is your right. But understand this clearly." She looked directly at the High Chancellor. "Humanity has built its own." A chill seemed to pass through the chamber, because the hologram did not only show ships, it showed defense stations hidden near major trade lanes. It showed new hyperspace gates under human control. It showed supply hubs that many species secretly relied on for faster travel. The realization began to spread. Earth had not grown blindly. They had grown carefully, quietly, strategically. The High Chancellor's voice lowered. "How long?" Hale answered without hesitation. 20 years. The chamber fell silent again. For 20 years, while smiling and cooperating, humanity had prepared for rejection. They had asked for equality. And when they sensed fear instead of trust, they built strength. The High Chancellor stared down at the humans. "You understand that mobilizing fleets near Council space can be interpreted as aggression." Hale gave a small nod. "And voting to remove a sovereign species from protection can also be interpreted as hostility." No one in the chamber could deny that. The humans were not shouting. They were not attacking. They were simply ready. The High Chancellor slowly sat back in his throne. The power in the room felt different now. The vote had passed. Earth had been banished. But something else had happened too. The galaxy had just learned that humanity did not panic under pressure. They adapted. They prepared. They endured. Ambassador Hale looked up one final time. "We thank the Council for its years of cooperation," he said calmly. "From this point forward, Earth will operate independently." He paused at the edge of the chamber floor. "But we will not be isolated." Those words hung in the air like a warning, or maybe a promise. The two humans turned and began walking toward the exit tunnel. No guards stopped them. No one spoke. Thousands of alien leaders simply watched in silence. And as the massive chamber doors slowly closed behind the departing humans, emergency alerts began flashing across private Council channels. Human fleets had just increased shield power across every monitored border. Simultaneously, the galaxy had voted Earth out, but as the chamber lights dimmed and worried whispers spread among the species, one truth became impossible to ignore. They had not weakened humanity. They had just freed it. And no one in that chamber truly knew what Phase 2 would bring next. The news spread across the galaxy within hours. Earth had been removed from the Galactic Council. At first, many species celebrated. Some believed humanity had grown too bold, too ambitious, too fast. Markets shifted. Trade agreements were paused. Military analysts began writing reports about possible human instability. But while the galaxy reacted, humanity moved. Deep inside the Sol system, behind layers of encrypted signals and hidden satellites, a message activated across thousands of secure channels. Phase 2 confirmed. On Earth, in cities filled with light and movement, people did not panic. They had been told long ago that this day might come. For 20 years, human leaders had prepared quietly, not in fear, but in understanding. They understood something simple about the galaxy. Power respected power. Trust without strength was only temporary. Far from Earth, beyond the orbit of Pluto, something massive stirred in the darkness. What had once looked like frozen asteroids slowly opened, their rocky surfaces split apart like mechanical shells. From inside, enormous shipyards revealed themselves. Dark metal structures unfolded into the vacuum of space. Energy lines pulsed along their frames. Docked within them were warships that had never been publicly shown. Black hulls. No reflective surfaces, no bright markings. Ships designed not for show, but for endurance. Admiral Sofia Mendez stood inside one of these hidden stations. She watched through a wide observation window as dozens of capital ships powered online. Her face was calm. "Fleet readiness?" she asked. A young officer beside her checked his screen. 87% and rising. Outer defense rings are active. Hyperspace lanes secured. She nodded slowly. "Begin silent deployment." Across the station, commands spread like electricity. Massive ships disengaged from docking clamps. One by one, they rotated toward open space. Their engines did not roar. They hummed quietly. Human technology had improved far beyond what the Council believed. While the galaxy had argued over policies and votes, humanity had invested in research, quantum, shields, gravitic stabilizers, autonomous repair systems. They had learned from every war the Council had fought, and they had built better tools. Back on Earth, in the United Planetary Assembly, leaders gathered in a circular chamber beneath the Atlantic Ocean. Unlike the Galactic Council, there were no raised thrones, no towering seats, just one level floor. President Amara Singh stood at the center. "The vote was expected," she said calmly. Around her, representatives from Mars, Luna, Titan, and Earth listened. "Our objective remains the same: stability, sovereignty, protection." A holographic map of the galaxy hovered above them. Red markers showed Council territories. Blue markers showed human fleet movements. Yellow lines showed trade routes. One of the Martian delegates leaned forward. "Are we provoking war?" President Singh shook her head. "No. We are preventing vulnerability." She looked around the room. "They removed our protection status. That means we are no longer shielded by Council treaties. Some species may see that as opportunity." "No," one argued. History had proven it many times. When a power seemed isolated, others tested it. President Singh continued. "Phase 2 ensures that no one tests us." Meanwhile, inside the Galactic Council chamber, confusion turned into concern. Reports were flooding in. Human fleets had appeared near multiple hyperspace corridors. They were not attacking. They were not blocking traffic. But they were present. Watching. Council. Military analysts gathered around a large projection table. One of them pointed at a flashing icon. "That corridor supplies 3 outer colonies." Another spoke nervously. "And that one connects to the Virex mining worlds." The High Chancellor stood silently at the head of the table. "How many vessels?" he asked. The analyst hesitated. "More than our estimates suggested humanity possessed." "How many more?" The analyst swallowed. "Triple." A quiet tension filled the room. For years, humanity had submitted fleet numbers to Council review, standard procedure. Now those numbers looked incomplete. "Did they hide this?" one official asked. Another answered quietly. They expanded beyond required reporting zones, which meant they had followed the rules. Technically, the High Chancellor's expression darkened. "Intent?" he asked. "No direct hostile action detected. Weapon systems? Powered but not locked." That detail mattered. Human ships were not targeting anything. They were simply ready. Far from the main fleet zones, something else activated. On the moons of Jupiter, enormous orbital platforms powered on. These were not warships. They were defense anchors, each one capable of projecting a shield field large enough to protect entire planetary systems. Hidden within the ice of Europa were energy reactors the size of cities. Human engineers had built them over decades, disguised as scientific research stations. Now they served a different purpose. Security. Back at Admiral Mendez's station, a transmission arrived, encrypted, high priority. She opened it. The face of Ambassador Hale appeared. Fleet positions? Stable, she replied. All outer markers secured. Hale nodded slightly. Good. Maintain distance from Council core systems. Mendez raised an eyebrow. They may interpret this as aggression anyway. Hale's expression remained calm. They already did when they voted. He leaned slightly closer to the screen. This is not about intimidation, Admiral. It is about clarity. She understood. Humanity was sending a message. We are not weak, we are not dependent, and we are not alone. In distant alien territories, smaller species began noticing something else. Human merchant ships were still operating. Trade had not stopped. Medical shipments still moved. Agricultural exports continued. Earth had not isolated itself. Instead, it had repositioned. Some species began quietly opening private communication channels with human representatives. If Earth was forming a new power structure, it might be wise to stand nearby. Back in the council chamber, fear slowly replaced pride. The High Chancellor replayed the final words of Ambassador Hale in his mind. Humanity will proceed with Phase 2. It had not sounded like a threat. It had sounded like a plan. He turned toward his advisors. How long have they been preparing? No one answered immediately, because the answer was uncomfortable. While the galaxy debated whether humans were trustworthy, humans had been preparing to stand alone, and perhaps to stand stronger. In the darkness beyond Neptune, the largest human vessel ever constructed slowly moved into position. Its name appeared along the hull in quiet silver letters. HNS Sovereign Resolve. It was not aimed at any world. It did not fire weapons. It simply took position at the edge of human-controlled space, a guardian, a statement. Inside the command deck, Captain Elias Rowan looked out at the stars. Signal all fleets, he ordered softly. Defensive posture only, no first strike. Under any condition, an officer nodded. Yes, Captain. Humanity did not want war, but they had removed the option of being pressured. And as reports continued pouring into the Galactic Council, showing the scale, the coordination, the discipline, one truth became clear. Earth had not reacted emotionally. They had executed a long-prepared strategy. The galaxy had believed it was punishing humanity. Instead, it had triggered something designed decades ago, something patient, something quiet, something powerful. And as alien leaders stared at fleet projections far larger than expected, they began asking themselves a dangerous question. If this was only Phase 2, what had Phase 1 truly been? And how many more phases were waiting in silence? The galaxy did not sleep that night. Across hundreds of star systems, leaders stayed awake, watching tactical screens and listening to nervous advisors. Human fleets remained in position. They did not fire. They did not advance. But they did not leave. And that was enough. Inside the Grand Galactic Council chamber, emergency lights glowed red along the walls. The beautiful blue atmosphere from before was gone. Now the chamber felt like a command bunker. The High Chancellor stood in the center of a circle of military commanders. Status update, he demanded. A tall reptilian strategist stepped forward. Human, fleets continue holding formation near primary hyperspace corridors. They have not blocked traffic. Civilian movement continues. Have they issued demands? The Chancellor asked. No. That answer disturbed him more than any threat could. No demands, no threats, just presence. Meanwhile, far beyond the Council core worlds, at the edge of the Virex trade route, a different kind of meeting was taking place. 3 large alien cargo fleets were preparing to pass through human-monitored space. Normally, Council protection fleets would escort them, but Earth no longer had Council status. The Virex traders hesitated. Should they risk the route? Without warning, a secure transmission signal appeared on their command screens. It carried the symbol of Earth. The captain of the Virex flagship accepted the transmission. Ambassador Lian Okoye appeared. Her face was calm. "Your convoy may proceed. Safely," she said. "Human fleets will not interfere with civilian trade." The Virex captain blinked his wide eyes. "You guarantee this?" "Yes," Okoye replied. "Humanity honors lawful trade." The transmission ended. The Virex ships moved forward cautiously. As they entered the corridor, enormous human warships floated in silent formation, weapons powered, shields glowing softly, but none moved, none locked on. The cargo fleet passed through without a single disturbance. The message traveled fast. Humanity was not attacking. Humanity was protecting space under its watch. That detail began changing opinions. Back inside the council chamber, intelligence reports shifted tone. "They are escorting neutral trade," one advisor said. "They are maintaining security near pirate zones," another added. The High Chancellor frowned. "Pirate zones?" "Yes," the advisor confirmed. "In fact, 2 known raider fleets have already withdrawn from those areas after detecting human patrols." The Chancellor felt the pressure building. For decades, the Council had struggled to secure certain outer routes. Now humanity was doing it, without permission, without asking, and without demanding payment. This was not aggression. This was influence. On Earth, President Amara Singh watched the updates from her office overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The sun was rising slowly. "Council reaction?" she asked her security advisor. "They are confused," he replied honestly. "Some factions argue we are threatening them. Others admit we are stabilizing border regions." Singh nodded slightly. "Good." She turned toward the large display showing the galaxy map. "Our first move was visibility," she said quietly. "The second is reliability." The advisor understood. If humanity wanted independence without war, they had to show strength and responsibility at the same time. Far from Earth, the HNS Sovereign Resolve detected something unusual. A fast-moving object approaching one of the monitored corridors. "Unidentified vessel," an officer reported. "Velocity high, no council signature." Captain Rowan stepped forward. "Magnify." The screen zoomed in. It was a pirate strike ship, known for attacking isolated transports. "Open channel," Rowan ordered. The pirate vessel did not respond. Instead, it adjusted course toward a small civilian science ship traveling alone. Rowan's jaw tightened. Intercept. Within seconds, 3 human destroyers broke formation and accelerated. Their engines glowed brighter. They moved like predators, but disciplined ones. The pirate ship fired first, a reckless move. Human shields absorbed the blast without damage. Rowan gave one clear order: disable. A single focused pulse beam struck the pirate ship's engine array. Not enough to destroy, just enough to stop. The pirate vessel spun helplessly. Human ships surrounded it. A message was broadcast across open space. "This is Human Defense Command. Piracy will not be tolerated in protected corridors. You will surrender." There was no anger in the voice, no shouting, just certainty. Within minutes, the pirate crew surrendered. The civilian science ship transmitted gratitude before continuing, safely. The entire event was recorded and transmitted across the galaxy. Back in the council chamber, silence returned as the footage played on the main screen. Human ships had intervened faster than any council patrol could have. The High Chancellor felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. Had they misjudged humanity? One of the elder counselors spoke softly. "They are not acting like exiles," another added. "They are acting like guardians." The word hung heavily in the chamber. Guardians did not beg for seats, they earned respect through action. Across smaller star systems, independent worlds began opening direct communication lines with Earth. Requests for security agreements, trade partnerships, joint research programs. Human diplomats answered carefully. They did not rush. They did not overpromise. Every agreement included one simple principle: mutual respect. No forced loyalty, no hidden control. The contrast with the Council's rigid hierarchy was noticeable. Very noticeable. Inside his private chamber, the High Chancellor stood alone, looking out at the artificial stars projected across the ceiling. He replayed the vote in his mind. It had seemed like a safe decision. Contain the fast-growing species. Limit their influence. But now, humanity's influence was expanding faster than before. Without Council limits, without Council supervision, and worst of all, without Council control. A secure message interrupted his thoughts. From one of the Council's strongest military powers. The message was short. If conflict begins with humanity, we will not support offensive action. The Chancellor read it twice. Then a second message arrived, similar content, and then a third. The Council was not united. Fear had replaced confidence. In the Sol system, Admiral Mendez received a full report from Captain Rowan about the pirate interception. She nodded slowly. Minimal force. Clear message. Good work. She looked around her command center. Screens showed stable borders, secure trade, growing diplomatic requests. Phase 2 was unfolding exactly as planned. Not through war, through demonstration. Humanity had answered banishment not with anger but with capability, and across the galaxy, a quiet realization began spreading. The Council had removed Earth's voice. But in doing so, they had removed the last limit holding humanity back. The first strategic move was complete. No war, no invasion, no threats, just strength, discipline, and control. But as analysts began reviewing fleet sizes and production capacities, a troubling pattern emerged. Human shipyards were still active, still building, still expanding. If this was only the beginning of independent human strategy, what would the next move look like? And would the Council still have the power to respond? The Galaxy watched, this time, not with confidence, but with caution. The Galaxy expected cannons. Instead, it felt silence. But not peaceful silence. Controlled silence. Measured silence. 3 weeks after the vote to banish Earth, no shots had been fired. No invasions had begun. No formal declarations of war had been announced. And that was exactly what made the situation dangerous, because something else had started happening, something slower, something deeper, something far more powerful than weapons. It began with navigation. For over 30 years, human scientists had worked closely with the Galactic Trade Commission. They had developed advanced hyperspace route prediction systems. Their algorithms calculated safe travel paths through unstable star regions faster than any other species. The Council had welcomed that technology. It made trade easier, faster, more profitable. But now, access to the human navigation network quietly changed. It did not shut down completely. It simply updated. Priority lanes became restricted. Certain high-efficiency shortcuts were labeled under maintenance. Cargo ships now had to take longer routes. Fuel costs increased. Travel time doubled in some sectors. At first, it seemed like coincidence. Then it became a pattern. On the outer edges of Council space, mining colonies reported delays in supply deliveries. Medical. Stations began requesting emergency stock because shipments were arriving late. Agricultural exports from distant worlds started spoiling during longer transit times. Panic did not explode. It grew slowly, like pressure building beneath the surface. Inside, the Grand Galactic Council chamber, another emergency session was called. The High Chancellor stood before a large economic projection. Red numbers filled the screen. Trade losses, fuel inflation, shipping delays. This is not direct aggression, one financial advisor admitted nervously. But the impact is measurable. Another added, without human route optimization, our efficiency drops by 22%. Can we replicate their system? The chancellor asked. A quiet pause followed. Not immediately. The truth was uncomfortable. Human engineers had designed key parts of the galactic trade backbone. Now that Earth was no longer a council member, they were no longer required to maintain maximum support. On Earth, President Amara Singh addressed the United Planetary Assembly again. The council chose separation, she said calmly. We are respecting that separation. A representative from Luna leaned forward. Are we targeting their economy? Singh shook her head slightly. No. We are prioritizing our own. She gestured toward a new projection. Human trade routes had shifted inward. Earth-focused alliances were strengthening. Independent worlds were signing direct agreements. A new, blue network was forming on the map, not overlapping with the old council system, running beside it, parallel, stronger every day. In a distant alien system, the governor of a small industrial planet paced nervously. Their economy depended heavily on fast hyperspace exports. Now ships were delayed, profits were shrinking. He opened a private communication channel. Destination, Earth Diplomatic Command, Ambassador. Hale appeared on the screen. The governor did not waste time. Our industries are suffering, he said bluntly. Your route restrictions are affecting us. Hale listened carefully. Your world voted to remove Earth from shared governance, Hale replied calmly. Yes, the governor admitted. But we did not expect. He stopped. Hale finished the sentence for him. You did not expect independence to have consequences. The governor lowered his gaze slightly. What are you offering? Hale answered without hesitation. Bilateral trade agreement. Direct human navigation support. Mutual defense pact optional. The governor hesitated. Joining direct human trade meant stepping slightly away from full council reliance. It was a political risk, but the economic numbers were clear. Send the terms, the governor said quietly. Another small shift. Another system leaning closer to Earth. Back in the council chamber, reports of these independent agreements began surfacing. 3 outer systems have signed direct trade support with humanity, an intelligence officer announced. The High Chancellor's expression tightened. They moved quickly. Yes, the officer replied. And carefully. That was the most frustrating part. Humanity was not demanding loyalty, they were offering stability. Stability during uncertainty, and many worlds valued that. Meanwhile, inside the hidden shipyards beyond Pluto, production had not slowed. In fact, it had increased. But not only warships, transport vessels, supply carriers, energy distribution platforms. Human industry had shifted from defensive readiness to expansion readiness. Admiral Mendez walked along a high observation deck, watching a new class of cruiser glide into position. She spoke to her chief engineer. Are we overextending? The engineer shook his head. No, Admiral. We're reallocating. He pointed to a display. Council trade reliance was decreasing. Human-aligned networks were increasing. We are building options, he said simply. Options meant freedom. Freedom meant leverage. Then something unexpected happened. A major council core world experienced a hyperspace accident. Navigation miscalculation caused a convoy of energy tankers to exit hyperspace dangerously close to a star's gravity well. 3 ships were damaged. 1 drifted without power. Emergency signals were broadcast. Council rescue fleets were hours away. The nearest response-ready force was human. Captain Rowan received the distress signal. He did not hesitate. Moved to assist. Within minutes, human vessels arrived. Tractor beams locked onto the drifting tanker. Engineering teams stabilized reactor cores. No speeches, no announcements. Just action. The rescue was successful. The footage once again spread across galactic networks. The reaction inside the council chamber was complicated. They assist us, while limiting trade efficiency, one advisor muttered. The High Chancellor responded quietly. They are showing capability without hostility. He understood now. This was not revenge. This was positioning. Humanity was proving something very specific. They were not reckless. They were not emotional. They were not dangerous because of anger. They were dangerous because of control. As weeks passed, the economic strain did not collapse the council, but it changed behavior. Votes became cautious. Military posturing softened. Private messages to Earth increased. The council had expected humanity to feel isolated. Instead, humanity had become a second center of gravity, a parallel power, and perhaps a more flexible one. Late one evening, Ambassador Hale stood alone on a balcony overlooking Earth's night side. City lights glowed across continents like stars on the ground. Ambassador Okoye joined him. They are feeling it, she said softly. Yes, Hale replied. Will they ask for reinstatement? He looked up at the real stars above. They will ask for stability. And will we accept? Hale allowed himself a small smile. We were never against cooperation. He paused. We were against disrespect. Back in the council chamber, the High Chancellor reviewed a growing list of independent worlds now trading directly with Earth. The balance was shifting, not through explosions, not through threats, but through steady, intelligent pressure. And as he closed the report, one realization settled heavily in his mind. The vote to banish Earth had not removed a problem. It had created a competitor, a calm one, a patient one, a powerful one. And the longer humanity stood, independently, the more attractive that independence began to look. The galaxy had expected anger, it received strategy. And somewhere deep inside council space, leaders began asking a question they never thought they would consider. What if Earth no longer needed the council at all? By the 6th week after the vote, the galaxy felt different. Not broken, not burning, but divided. Two centers of power now existed. The Galactic Council still controlled vast territories, ancient fleets, and deep political influence. But humanity controlled something new. Momentum. Across trade routes, more independent systems were signing limited agreements with Earth. Not full alliances. Not rebellions against the Council, just options. And options were powerful. Inside the Grand Galactic Council chamber, the High Chancellor stood before a smaller, private meeting of senior leaders. No public broadcast, no spectators, only decision-makers. We must address this situation directly, the Chancellor said. His voice was steady, but the strain showed. A tall avian counselor responded first. Humanity has not attacked. They have not violated any major treaty. They have destabilized our economic structure, another argued. The Chancellor nodded, slightly. They have revealed our dependence. That truth was harder to accept than any accusation. For years, the Council had believed Earth needed galactic recognition. But now it was clear. The galaxy needed human systems more than it had. Realized, a military commander spoke next. If conflict begins now, we face divided support. Several outer systems will not participate in offensive action. The room fell quiet. The Council had strength, but not unity. And unity was everything. Far away, near Saturn's orbit, a massive human diplomatic station rotated slowly above the planet's golden rings. It was not shaped like a weapon. It looked more like a city in space. Transparent domes, docking ports, long silver arms extending outward like open hands. This was where Ambassador Hale now worked. A secure transmission arrived. From the Council priority level, Maximum, Hale read the message carefully. The Council requested formal dialogue, neutral location, no fleet movements during negotiation. He allowed himself a quiet breath. It had begun. He turned to Ambassador Okoye. They are ready to talk. She studied his expression. Are we ready to listen? He nodded once. We always were. The meeting was arranged carefully. A council delegation would travel to the Saturn station. No heavy escorts, no visible weapons. Human fleets would maintain distance. The galaxy watched closely. Some feared war would spark during the meeting. Others hoped for resolution. When the council delegation arrived, their ships were scanned respectfully but thoroughly. They were guided into the station's central chamber. The room surprised them. There were no tall thrones, no elevated platforms, just a round table, equal height on all sides. Ambassador Hale entered, with calm steps. President Singh joined remotely through a secure projection. The High Chancellor appeared on the opposite side of the table. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence felt heavier than the first vote weeks ago. The Chancellor broke. "If the Council recognizes that recent events have created instability," Hale responded calmly. "Instability followed your decision. We adapted. You mobilized fleets across multiple sectors," the Chancellor said. "We secured our borders," Hale replied. "You limited trade efficiency. We prioritized internal systems." There was no anger in his voice, just facts. The Chancellor leaned forward slightly. "The Council does not seek war. Neither does Earth," Hale answered immediately. That answer mattered, very much. President Singh spoke. "Next, the issue is not conflict. The issue is respect." She looked directly at the Chancellor. "Earth contributed to galactic security for decades. When fear grew instead of dialogue, you chose removal." The Chancellor did not deny it. "Some species feared your growth," he admitted. "Growth is not aggression," Singh said calmly. "Rapid military expansion concerns others." Hale leaned slightly forward. "We expanded because we were denied equal defense authority." The room went quiet. There it was, the core problem. Humanity had not been allowed full military status within Council law. They were always partially supervised, partially, limited. When they requested change, the vote came instead. The Chancellor folded his hands slowly. "What does humanity want now?" Hale did not hesitate. "Recognition." "Define that," the Chancellor pressed. "Equal military authority, within shared space, permanent security voting rights, and protection from unilateral removal." The last phrase hung in the air. Unilateral removal. The Council had used majority vote to banish Earth. Humanity would not allow that risk again. The Chancellor considered carefully. "You demand structural change to the Council itself." "Yes," Hale said simply. A senior counselor whispered urgently into the Chancellor's ear. The Chancellor nodded slightly, then spoke again. "If we agree to reconsider Earth's status." "Will fleets withdraw?" Hale shook his head gently. "Fleets remain defensive. They withdraw when trust returns. Trust, not orders, not commands. Trust." The difference was clear. Hours passed. Terms were debated. Security clauses examined. Trade protocols reviewed. Human negotiators remained calm. They did not threaten. They did not rush. They let silence work. Finally, the Chancellor spoke with a tone very different from the day of the vote. "The Council is prepared to reinstate Earth under revised conditions." He paused, "with equal standing." The words felt historic. President Singh answered carefully. "Reinstatement is not our primary objective." The Council delegates shifted uncomfortably. "Our objective," Singh continued, "is balance." She projected a document onto the table, a revised interstellar charter. It proposed equal permanent defense voting rights for Earth, prohibition of species removal without unanimous consent, shared oversight of hyperspace security corridors, joint economic advisory systems. The Chancellor read silently. This was not revenge, it was reform. But reform meant change, and change was difficult for ancient institutions. "You ask us to reshape centuries of governance," he said quietly. Hale met his gaze. "You reshaped ours in a single vote." Silence returned. But this silence felt different. Less hostile, more reflective. Outside the station, human fleets remained steady, not advancing, not retreating, watching, waiting. Across the galaxy, independent systems monitored the negotiations closely. Many had already signed direct agreements with Earth. They would follow whichever power proved wiser. The pressure was not military anymore. It was political gravity. The council felt it. Humanity felt it. History was bending slightly in one direction. The Chancellor finally looked up from the document. We will take this proposal to full council review. Hale nodded. And we will maintain defensive posture until the decision is final. No threats, no deadlines, just certainty. As the delegation prepared to depart, the Chancellor paused near Hale. You prepared for this day long ago, he said, quietly. Hale answered honestly. We prepared for being underestimated. The Chancellor studied him carefully. Were we your enemy? Hale shook his head. No. He glanced at the vastness of space outside the window. But you were never our protector either. The words were not cruel. They were simply true. When the Council ships departed Saturn's orbit, the galaxy waited once more. The next vote would not be about banishment. It would be about transformation. And this time, everyone understood the stakes, because humanity had shown something dangerous to ignore. They did not collapse under pressure. They did not explode in anger. They adapted. They positioned. They endured. And if the Council refused again, Phase 2 had already proven that humanity could stand alone, but if the Council accepted, the galaxy would never look the same. The final vote took place 32 days after Earth was banished, but this time the chamber felt different. There was no confidence in the air, no quiet pride, only awareness. Every seat was filled again. Every species watched carefully. The blue lights above the chamber glowed softly, but the mood was heavier than before. At the center of the floor stood Ambassador Daniel Hale and Ambassador Leon Okoye once more. They stood in the same place as the day of their removal, but everything had changed above them. The holographic screen displayed a new motion: Council Structural Reform and Reinstatement of Earth. The High Chancellor stood slowly. His voice was calm, but no longer cold. The Council acknowledges recent instability and recognizes the need for reform. The proposal before us will grant Earth equal permanent defense status and revise removal protocols. A quiet murmur moved through the chamber. This was no small change. This was rewriting tradition. The Chancellor continued. The vote will now begin. Lights activated across thousands of panels again. Green, red. The humans did not look up immediately. They had already prepared for both outcomes. If rejected, humanity would continue independently. If accepted, the galaxy would change, the mind. Numbers began to rise on the screen. Approved votes climbed steadily. Opposed votes followed, but fewer than before. Systems that once feared human growth had seen something new over the past weeks. Discipline, restraint, reliability. The final count froze. Approved. A deeper tone echoed across the chamber. This time it did not feel like a weapon. Striking stone. It felt like something unlocking. The High Chancellor looked down at the humans. Earth is reinstated as a permanent, equal member of the Galactic Council. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then something unexpected happened. Several species stood, not in submission, not in fear, in acknowledgement. The humans did not smile widely. They simply nodded once. Respect returned with control. But the real change was not symbolic. It was practical. Within hours of the vote, new joint security protocols activated. Human fleets adjusted formation, not withdrawing fully, but integrating into shared patrol routes. Council defense grids updated to include Earth systems.navigation networks synchronized for the first time. Humanity was not requesting access, they were granting it. In private chambers after the vote, the High Chancellor met again with Ambassador Hale. This time, there was no large table, just 2 chairs near a wide window showing distant stars. Could have fractured the Council, the Chancellor said quietly. Hale answered honestly. That was never the goal. You applied pressure carefully. Yes. The Chancellor studied him. Why? Hale paused before answering. Because if we destroyed the Council, something worse would replace it. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed slightly. You still believe in unity? We believe in balance, Hale corrected gently. There was a difference. Unity could hide inequality. Balance required strength on all sides. Across the galaxy, independent systems reacted quickly. Those who had signed direct agreements with Earth did not cancel them. Instead, they expanded them. Now they had access to both Council and human networks. Security improved. Trade stabilized. Pirate activity dropped sharply. Human rapid response fleets proved efficient and disciplined. Even former critics admitted it privately. Human strategy had not been reckless expansion. It had been preparation for equality. On Mars, citizens watched the vote results on large public screens. There were celebrations, but controlled ones. No wild cheering, no anger toward the Council. Just pride. They had stood firm. They had not begged. They had not attacked. They had proven value. The outer corridors, once considered unstable. Something interesting happened. Joint patrol fleets formed for the first time. Human ships flew beside Council vessels. Different designs, different cultures, but equal command authority. At one patrol briefing, a Council commander turned to a human captain. Your ships respond faster than our models predicted. The human captain replied simply, we trained for rejection. The commander gave a quiet nod. Now they were training for cooperation. Weeks later, the High Chancellor addressed the full Council publicly. Recent events have reminded us that strength within this galaxy does not belong to one species alone. He glanced briefly toward the human section. Fear led to division. Division revealed imbalance. Balance has now been restored. It was not an apology, but it was close. And in politics, that was significant. Far beyond Council space, in regions not yet explored fully, signals moved through deep space. Unknown observers had watched the entire situation carefully. They had expected chaos when Earth was removed. They had expected civil war or fragmentation. Instead, they saw something else. Controlled escalation. Strategic. Pressure. Peace through power. A quiet message was sent from that distant region. Humanity demonstrates maturity. Monitor closely. The galaxy did not know it yet, but new eyes were watching. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Mendez stood aboard the HNS Sovereign Resolve. Fleet positions had shifted, alert levels reduced, but readiness remained high. An officer approached her. Admiral, do you believe the Council has truly changed? She looked out at the stars before answering. They adapted, she said. Like us? Yes. She folded her hands behind her back. That is how survival works. On Earth, Ambassador Okoye walked beside Hale near a quiet ocean cliff. The wind was calm. Was this victory? She asked. Hale thought carefully. It was correction. And if they try again? He smiled slightly. They won't underestimate us twice. He looked toward the horizon. But if they do, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Because Phase 2 had shown the galaxy something important. Humanity did not rely on anger. They relied on preparation. They did not rush into conflict. They shaped it. They did not demand respect. Loudly, they built power until respect became logical. Months later, when new proposals were introduced inside the Council chamber, debates sounded different. Species listened more carefully. Votes were more cautious. No one casually spoke of removing Earth again, because they remembered, not the fleets alone, not the economic pressure, but the calm, the control, the discipline, the knowledge that if pushed, humanity would not fall apart. They would reorganize, and they would return stronger. And somewhere deep in Council archives, the record of that first vote remained stored. A reminder. The day the galaxy tried to silence Earth, and instead amplified its strength. Humanity had been banished for 32 days, and in those 32 days, they had reshaped galactic politics, without firing a single destructive shot. The lesson was simple. You can vote Earth out of a chamber, but you cannot vote humanity out of the future.